The tradition of Swami Sivananda. This is the northern yoga tradition. If we would try to compare this tradition with Krishnamacharya's tradition, then we would notice that while Krishnamacharya was a true whirlpool in the stream of yoga, and he had tried to incorporate everything new and modern in the yoga practice, Sivananda tried to incorporate yoga wherever it was possible. And many things were possible, as Sivananda was a doctor himself, and he was the first man who tried to incorporate yoga in his contemporary medicine. Well, he worked at the period of early 20th century. Surely the medicine was not nearly as advanced as it is now, hormones were not discovered, neurosciences were at their very beginning, well, only the blood pressure was possible to be measured, and there was aspirin. There were even not many pain relievers. Sivananda had traveled Malaysia and was the hospital director for a long time. Then he came back to India. In Rishikesh, he had started practicing yoga, there he had his first mystical experiences, and there he had created his own style of yoga, which was distinctly different from those of Krishnamacharya's, for instance. Firstly, it's a much more soft style. It assumes slow entering the asana, long time of staying within the asana, smooth exiting the asana. One might say that Sivananda's yoga is one of the less stressful yogas. Moreover, Sivananda had lots of meditative practices. Himself, he had lots of long-time retreats. There is a Sivananda cave in Gangotri, a small Sivananda's house in Rishikesh, so that's some general features of this tradition. Among the great Sivananda's descendants, we might admit two distinct lineages. Swami Vishnudevananda was spreading Sivananda's yoga in the West and especially in the United States of America. He had written one of the first books which were translated, among others, into Russian, the complete illustrated book of yoga, and Swami Satyananda Saraswati, the founder of Bihar Yoga School, which also made a lot concerning popularizing yoga, created its own authentic style of Hatha Yoga based on smooth movement and Yoga Nidra techniques. Moreover, Bihar Yoga School had made lots of translations of classical texts into English, thus popularizing yoga tradition. We may say that it is a pretty closed esoteric school, although some of our instructors had successfully penetrated Mungir and to live some time in this ashram to know this style by themselves. Hatha Yoga there significantly differences from what is known to us, but it's the same Hatha Yoga in its essence. And speaking about Sivananda's students, we must mention one of the greatest figures of European culture, the Mircea Eliade. 3 years he had spent in Sivananda's tradition, studying Sanskrit and learning yoga practice within Sivananda ashram. In one of his latest books, he had made this confession: "And if I stayed in my hut on the left bank of the Ganges, in my hidden jungle refuge, of which I think only as of lost paradise, maybe there I'd find the key to the mystery. Maybe after long years of preparation and persistent search, I would find a way that leads to an invisible country. But it was written in my stars that until my death I'd cherish it in my sorrows and never know it." So who is Mircea Eliade? In fact, this is the man who had found the phenomenology of religions, one of the fundamental approaches among modern religious studies. He also studied the comparative religious studies, finding the mythological roots of religions. Within these methodical approaches, he had written lots of amazing books, such as Yoga, Immortality and Freedom, which we see here. He also wrote amazing books on shamanism and techniques of ecstasy. He also has books on modern esotericism and occult studies. So this was a truly outstanding personality who had lived a long and fruitful life, over 90 years. His works had made a huge influence on the whole European culture, and all this life had started when he was 18, and he had written a letter to Maharaja asking for funds and grant for studying in India, and against all the odds he was granted these funds. So he departed from Bucharest to Calcutta and then to Rishikesh, where he had practiced yoga under the supervision of Sivananda. Sivananda said about Mircea Eliade that this is the second Vivekananda. Well, maybe he didn't become the second Vivekananda, but he had reached the huge scale in his field.